Samope, Sampa Bietia, Chimothy Dienum Kotu, Era One Radio, Samope, Jumpa Bietia, Chimothy Dienum Kotu, Era One Radio, oh, and Yumpangua, Asam Pangua.
Evening, Era One Radio listeners. I'm excited to come your way again this evening on the Divine Connection Show. I'm your host, Charles Boison. I must apologize. We are a bit late today because we had to take off some issues. But I'm so excited and glad that my guest, the Reverend Bishop Archbishop Joe Kwappong, is in the house. A few weeks ago, I started another book series. Actually, that's my first formal live book, review or book club, and he was chosen to be the guest for that program. So tonight we're doing a 2-in-1 program. I am doing a book review on him, and I'm also, having a discussion. With these days, we don't talk about interviews. We're doing a live discussion. We are just discussing issues. And what we're going to talk tonight is about reclaiming fatherhood in America. Maybe you ask me, why are we doing fatherhood when it is not Father's Day? Well, fatherhood is a whole calling. It's a job. It's a 24/7, hour job, just like motherhood. So we don't have to wait for Father's Day before we do that. And if you were doing that properly, there wouldn't be too many people incarcerated and wouldn't have too many homeless people. It's a role that fathers have to play, and we have to get rid of homelessness in this country. So we have to do a better job at that. And of course, who else to do this job but the most Reverend Bishop Joe Kwappong is in the house. It's all the way in Atlanta. So Pastor Joe, you are welcome. Any opening remarks, any greetings for the family or birthday wishes, what have you?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Dr. Boison. You know that it's always a joy to be with you. We go way back, and I'm honored to have been chosen, as you said, to be a part of this discussion. I want to say right off the back, behind what you said, although it's not Father's Day, fatherlessness in the world, in America in particular, and in the world, is a crisis. It's an epidemic. As long as 24 million children, 1 out of every 3, live without a father figure in the home, it is a crisis. And so we have to talk about it, not just once, not twice, not only on Father's Day, but we constantly have to have that discussion. So thank you again for having me, and I look forward to the discussion tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Pastor Joe. Of course, for those of you who listen to me the first time, at least you have a little knowledge of who Pastor Joe is. But for those of you who are listening to us the very first time, I want to just, let you know who he is, so that when you meet him, at least you know who the Bishop Joe Kwappong is. This man was consecrated as a bishop in 2003, which means he's been at this job for a while. And he's a son, he's a brother, he's a friend, he's a husband, a father, he's a songwriter, he's an author, devoted psalmist, and entrepreneur, among others. He's a senior pastor of New Bridge Church in Atlanta, Georgia. So for those of you who don't have a home church, please, if you live in the Atlanta, Georgia area, look for New Bridge Church and go and fellowship on Sundays. Sundays, you can't miss it. And I'm sure they have weekday service. When you get there, they will introduce you. So Pastor Joe has been a pastor for more than 3 decades. He's planted and supported other church plantings spanning Africa, the United Kingdom, and the US. So he's a globe trotter or traveler. He's been to UK, Ghana, call it whatever. Also, he's a minister of music. His recent 2 books, The Father Factor and then The Worship. You will love that worship book. Go to Amazon and get a copy of that worship book. We'll talk about that later. He writes and sings. He's a worshiper, and he served with Judah Praise International. That is International Central Gospel Church from its inception in 1984, and with several others. In August of 2010, Bishop Joe and his wife, Lady Vicky, launched Life Givers Missions, a charitable organization which began its Widow's Mite operation to the underprivileged and homeless in abandoned buildings under bridges and street corners of downtown Atlanta. So not only is he preaching fatherhood, he's also getting kids off the streets from Atlanta. In the last 3 years, Life Givers, with the support of its partners, have expanded its operations to Choco. Of course, when you hear Choco, you think about Kenke, Jamestown, and all that, and La Papa enclaves. These are all suburbs in Ghana, West Africa, where hundreds of children have been fed and clothed while sharing the love of God with the community. And I must say that when you feed people, it is very easy for them to hear the gospel. I mean, you go to a homeless place, feed them first, and spread the gospel, and they will take it in a heartbeat. He's, of course, I mean, as handsome as he looks, he's not single. He's married to Lady Vicky, and their union is blessed with two beautiful young adult ladies, Adriel and Sharon. All right. So tonight we are looking at reclaiming fatherhood. We are looking at the father factor. And there's one word that we'll be looking at tonight is the key, the word forgot about. We'll go into that tonight. All right. So if you are listening to us, this broadcast is made possible courtesy of my CEO, Dr. Setutu, and the Era One team. You can find us right now live on Facebook, on YouTube, also on Ghana Modern Radio or Modern Ghana Radio. We're also on Garden Radio. If you want to call in and speak to Pastor Joe or ask him a question, the number is 240-280-2633. Or if you want to text us, it's 510-931-0946. All right. Pastor Joe, what is current in our system now? Any current news? I know when you talk about Ghana, our CD, the CD is going to almost 11 cities to a dollar. That is kind of dangerous. And I know one of our vice presidents said they were going to chase. Actually, they said he already arrested the dollar and gave the key to the IGP. But it looks as if the dollar escaped prison and is now running on the street. What do you have to say about that?
I mean, you are the pro when it comes to these things. So I take my news from you. We hope all the best for Ghana. You know, Ghana is a great country. Ghana is a gateway to Africa, as we know. Those of us diasporans, we love Ghana, and we look forward to, you know, things turning around for all of us. You know, because I haven't lost hope. I still believe that there will be a turnaround some way, somehow. So we keep praying and hoping for the best, you know.
All right, well said, well said. All right, well said. All right, so tonight, as I said earlier on, we are looking at the father factor, the key that the world forgot about. And I know Pastor Joe is going to explain that. But before we do, this is a book review and also a discussion with the author of the book, Pastor Joe. The book is very, very, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, I've read it. And I recommend you. You know, I don't, recommend stuff if I don't believe in them. It's a very good book, very spicy, has all the right scriptures. You will see how the prodigal son was actually illustrated in this book. I'm still wondering how the father could allow that to be possible. So please go to Amazon and get your copy. You can get some, I think, the Barnes Nobles or all the reputable bookstores. Get a copy. Let's develop the gift of reading. Let's enlighten ourselves. Let's read. Let's polish ourselves so that we can't say the lack of knowledge. For lack of knowledge, my people perish, or ignorance, they say, is no excuse. So please get a copy of Bishop Joe's book and read it from cover to cover. If you're a lady, buy it for your husband, or even buy it for your children who are potential fathers, so that we will decrease fatherlessness in this country. All right, Pastor Joe, I know you grew up in a home where there was a father. Your mom is still, Auntie Agnes is still, around. And I want you to tell us a little bit, I know your dad was a role model. Were there any attributes, any qualities, something that rubbed on you that is made you become a better or a good father yourself? Of course, I mean, those qualities should rub on you and you've become a greater, better father to Adriel and Cheryl. Can you share with us some of those qualities? I mean, this is the time you pay tribute to your dad, although he's not here to enjoy them.
Right. Well, thank you for that question. The entire book, The Father Factor, I dedicate first to my father, my earthly father. I also talk about my mother as well. But since we're talking about fathers, my father was in my life for a short period, just 11 years. But during those 11 years, he left that indelible print in my life, in my other siblings' lives. You know, my father was a fun-loving person. He would always come home from work and still have time to bond with us. One of the things I always looked forward to was that he came home and he had a Beetle. For those of you who are old enough to know what a Beetle is, you know, back in the day, the VW, they called it,
Yep.
you know, and he would put us in there. Later on, he had a Peugeot 404 French car, and he would, you know, put us all in there, and we would go out for ice cream. You know, my father was really a hands-on father. He played with us. You know, he had games with us, and he was always involved in our education. You know, one thing that my father also did very well was he was a generous person. You know, my father would pick people literally from the street and would bring them home and just feed them. And, you know,
Mm.
he always had somebody that he was looking after. And funny enough, my mother was the same, is still the same way. You know, so much of the things that we have grown to emulate is from the home that we grew up in, and the qualities that they exemplified in our home.
Mm.
So yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So now I can tell where those attributes come from. I mean, it's genetic or heredity. It comes from the dad and the mom. And I mean, if you've met Pastor Joe before, Bishop Joe, you will know what he's saying. I'm not trying to, jive you or anything, but those qualities are there. When you meet Pastor Joe, you will know he's always smiling and always, ready to help. And so those qualities are there. And I dare even say that in Ghana we have a term we call dadaba. Dadaba means,
I
children
don't
who
know.
grew children who grew up in very,
Is that a conversation you really want to have?
no, not right. I mean, it's just the term, affluent families. When some of us were hustling a little bit, these guys were going to school in, VWs and Peugeots, the Dada bus, and some of us were tagging and working. So he has seen life. I mean, I don't think this guy knows anything like poverty. I mean, he enjoyed it. He grew up and he's still enjoying Atlanta. So that is awesome. That is awesome. All right. So, Pastor Joe, in chapter 1 of your book, you mentioned something about in a world where if fathers were only progenitors, and of course, progenitor is just somebody giving the seed and doing all that, where they don't even take time to take care of their children. Now, you mentioned protection and provision. As far as prisons are concerned, would you say most fathers have done a good job?
As far as what is concerned, sir.
Like fatherhood. I mean, if you look at the
Okay.
prisons, I mean, the homelessness and
Right.
children who are being incarcerated, would you
Right.
say fathers on the whole generally have done a
Right.
good job?
Well, let me go back a little bit and touch on the word progenitors,
Okay.
because a progenitor is a prototype. That is a very powerful word in
Okay.
itself. Although some people just take that part and don't do the other parts that a father is supposed to do,
Okay.
because a progenitor is a prototype, is the original copy.
Okay.
When you walk into a Xerox office, you have to have the original copy, put it on the machine, and then you run copies out of that. The
Original,
father
yes.
is supposed to be that. He's not just a seed giver. He's not
Okay.
just a person who
You don't.
lays with a female to make children, but if he understands that word progenitor, it means that he is the original copy.
Okay.
He's the seed giver. Now, you said your question is, have fathers done a good job, right?
Yes.
I really can't judge fathers. I can't say, but if we have to go off of statistics, if we have to look at the numbers, if we have to look at what the record says and shows, number one, the effect of a father, the effect the father has on his children, is it can never be overplayed. you
Okay.
know Later on in the book, I talk about statistics, like when a father is involved in the life of his son or daughter, it makes all the difference. It takes care of things like promiscuity. It helps children even do better in school.
School.
So absolutely, a father holds a key to the kids growing up and becoming who they are meant to be. you know have fathers done well? I say that there is always room for improvement. There is always more that we can do as fathers. The statistics is alarming. The statistics show that it is an epidemic. It's a pandemic, just like, we had COVID-19 and we know the effects of it. Fatherlessness in America, as long as 1 out of every 3, 24 million children living without a biological father present at home, then it means that we can do better. There is so much that we can do to bridge that gap.
Awesome. Thank you very much. There's a word you mentioned that there's always room for improvement. And for those of you who went to, I wouldn't say Saito, but some of those, even the private schools, the international school, your report will come at the end of the term, and your teacher, guardian teachers are very mean. Even when you get A, they will still write in your report, more room for improvement. It's something that they just love to use the phrase, more room for improvement. So irrespective of how good we have fathers have done, like Bishop said, there's still room for improvement. We can still do better. And so if your teacher tells you, even if you get A plus and he still puts there more room for improvement, then maybe what he's saying is that apart from you getting A plus, the next thing he wants you to do, just take some of your classmates and tutor them and let them also get A, so that that room for improvement may not be used. All right. So we are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube, and my guest co-host is the Bishop Joseph Kwappong, all the way in Atlanta. And the book we are discussing, the Father Factor, the key, the word for God. And please, as I said, please, let's patronize our people. Let's push our people. Let's encourage our people. I mean, if we encourage this man, who knows, in the next 1 year, he's going to write 10 books. That is how people get, propelled to do good works. If they get encouragement. Can you imagine after this show, everybody goes to Amazon and gets a book, buy one for your wife or your cousin or whatever to be a good father? Can you imagine you are pushing our brother onto good works? So that's what we're discussing tonight. If you want to call in and ask a question, it's 240-280-2633, and of course you can text him. All right, Bishop, you mentioned priests and prophets as the role of the father. Take us through that. The father acting or playing the role of a priest as well as a prophet in the home.
All right. Now, we know, first of all, that God is the ultimate father. He's the one who gives us our being, because nothing exists out of the vacuum. If I tell you to bring me an instrument you don't know anything about, it more than likely anyone would be confused and not know. That's true. If I tell you, give me a computer, you have seen a computer before, so you know what a computer is. If I tell you, bring me a phone, an iPhone, you know what an iPhone is. Hopefully we all do. So when you talk about the father being a priest, we are talking about fulfilling his spiritual duty. Okay. The priesthood had to do or has to do with the spirituality or the spiritual aspect of a father. Okay. Who is a priest and what does a priest do? A priest is one that would take from the people and present to God, who is the ultimate father, who shows us how a father should look like. So what do I mean, take from the people? If you take the request of the people, you take prayer, things that has to do with prayer, spiritual things that are needed in the house, and you kneel and you show, you pray to God, right? You basically model that to your children. I'll give you an example. In Genesis 22, Abraham went to Mount Moriah with his son Isaac, and God had instructed him to go to Moriah and sacrifice. Now, Isaac asked his father a very important question. He said, I see the firewood, I see all the trappings of sacrifice, but where is the lamb? Where is the sacrifice that has to go on the altar to be burned to God? Now, that tells us that Isaac he had knowledge of the things that was needed to engage in the sacrifice. Who taught him? It had to be his father. So as a father, we have to take time to teach our children spirituality. It begins with you modeling prayer, you modeling coming into the temple, your service to God, your priestly duties as a
Okay.
father. That's where it starts. So when I talk about the father being a priest, I'm talking about a father who takes time to teach his children spirituality, teach them the fact that there is a God and this world was created by the supreme being, and we go to him in prayer. We take time to sacrifice, because one of the things that the priest does is also to sacrifice, to bring sacrifice to God. So you model it as a father to your children so that they know what it means to be a father. There are some fathers who would take time to give their children all they want, give them cars if they need it, give them good education if that's what is needed. But the priestly element cannot be missing. It is so important. That's who a priest is. You take from the people, you present your prayers to God as a priest. A prophet, on the other hand, takes from God and brings to the people.
Wow.
He
Wow.
takes from God and brings to the people. God is our father. We are his children. The same way a father interacts with a child is the same way God interacts with us. You get up in the morning, you say hello to your father. God might say to you, there's work that has to be done. He might direct you in a certain way. How can you live life without talking to him? And when he talks back to you, he gives you that prophetic insight. He gives you that knowing. So a father must help his children to develop these two aspects: talking to God and receiving from God. And that's what I mean by being a priest and a prophet.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So I have my sister Martha here all the way from Adenta, Ghana. Martha is a very prolific farmer. She has a lot of poultry. Those of you, like I said the other day, those of you who like buying frozen chicken and stuff, stop it. Martha is rearing animals that she can give you rare chicken. So see her and get fresh product. Now she has a question which says, Bible says we should obey our parents in the Lord. Ephesians 6:1-3. How do children obey a father who is not a prototype of God? A father with a questionable lifestyle.
Is that okay? Now, here's my answer. The I call being a father is an office.
Okay.
Okay. I want to use that term loosely. It's a spiritual office, whether the father is born again or not, because you model a certain aspect of God. God is the father of all spirits, the Bible calls him. God is the first. He's the prototype. He's the original copy out of which everything comes out. And as a father, you also play that role. So your father doesn't have to necessarily be a born-again Christian or a pastor or any other religion, say Muslim, a sheikh, whatever, spirituality they have, for them to be respected. The fact that they are a father or even a mother, you have to honor them. You have to obey them. Okay, so that's right off the back. The scripture says, honor your mother and your father, so it will be well with you. It says nothing about, whether they are Christians, whether they are in the church, they are church elders and all that. The fact that they are fathers, they are mothers, they brought you in the world, they have that, they occupy that office. We have to honor them. We have to respect them. Now, when you go into Ephesians chapter 6, where Paul comes off of Exodus, one of the 10 commandments, where God is talking about honoring your mother and your father. He starts off from Exodus, but he breaks off into a situation that was facing the church in Ephesus. Okay. Honoring your mother and father in the Lord. That's a different context than the one of the 10 commandments that says to honor God. I mean, your parents, period. Okay, when you are being instructed on certain things, and it's not just your biological mother and father in the Lord, and I talk about that later on at the towards the end of the chapter. But some things that dishonor God, you don't want to take those examples. You don't want to emulate those things. For example, if you have a parent who is an alcoholic, for example, that's not a character that you want to emulate. That's not something you want to copy and produce the same thing. You have a father who runs around, they say, a rolling stone. This is not the Bash Fathers, but it's an expression. I think the Beatles sang a song and said, Papa was a rolling stone,
Yeah.
right? He was a rolling stone. Yes, that's what that means. So I hope it helps out.
That's a very good response to that. And even in that same, I'm glad Martha brought that, even in that same Ephesians, it's not, it's a dual or a double fork, kind of contribution that Paul gave. Paul also mentioned that even the fathers should not provoke the children. Maybe we'll come to that later, because that's also a profound thing, because we expect the fathers, of course, some part of the world in culture, a father is always right. Fathers always, when the father says something is fine, like he said, even if he's doing something wrong, you can't say it. But if he's alcoholic and asking you to do stuff you're not supposed to do, then you have to stand up. So the fathers also do not have to provoke their children, because you can push your child to the wall and he might let him say something in disrespect, which is something you don't want to take. Let me take a quick message right here, and then when we come back, Pastor Joe, I have a bunch of questions for you.
Chimafidi non kotu era one radio. Samupe jumpe dietia. Chimafidi non kotu era one radio. Oh, ayum pamchima. Chintu asam pamchima. Chintu agratum chima. Era one,
hello, beautiful people of Ghana. This is Banahine Specialist Hospital. We are so excited to announce to our people Ghana that we are finally opened and we are accepting patients. At Banahine Specialist Hospital, our extraordinary physicians and nurses are here to provide a high-quality medical service to our extraordinary patients. Our services include primary care services, maternal, neonatal, and pediatric services. We also have an in-house pharmacy. We have X-ray and laboratory services available to you. Come to us for all your healthcare needs, and you will be happy you did, because we believe that health is wealth. Thank you, and stay blessed.
All right, we are back in the studios. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. The number to call is 240-280-2633, and if you can text is 510-9310946. And in the hot seat is the handsome bishop, the one and only bishop in Atlanta. I mean, that's the only one I know. I don't know for other bishop. He's the only one, Bishop Joe Kwappong. All right, so this man is lived in a lot of places. He's lived in London, the Queen's domain. So he speaks and writes the English language like he's drinking asana. On page 26 of his book, he wrote this, and I want him to break it down, because some of us, the Brofu is not our mother tongue. He said, fatherhood is unequivocally God's idea, guaranteed to strengthen and preserve families and communities. Doc, if I was reading this book, I didn't understand. I was making assumptions. Break this down. What did you actually mean with this phrase? You want me to read it again?
Father, read it one more time.
So it says, fatherhood is unequivocally God's idea, guaranteed to strengthen and preserve families and communities.
All right. So without question, right, unequivocally, fatherhood is the bedrock of the community and the family.
Okay.
It is the very bedrock. It is the foundation on which everything else is built. God exemplifies this when he began to create the family in the book of Genesis, he started out with Adam. He made the male, and he was in there by himself. Then he pulls out of his rib a woman who comes to be a part of him. And later on, we see children coming in. We see Adam, Eve, etc., etc. So without question, the father is supposed to be I talked about the priest, I talked about the prophet. He is the bedrock. He's the foundation of the community and of the family. Think about it. Every rapist, every person who has ever been molested, everyone who's ever been an armed robber who has robbed a bank or robbed people, once used to be a child in a home.
That's true.
Now imagine that in this home, if the role of the mother and the father was there, they were raised right. They were raised to know. Of course, some things are choices, because once you do your job as a father or a mother, at some point the child becomes an adult and they have to make, choices.
Yeah, that's true.
But if every person who has ever had trauma in any form or shape had this home, the picture of what is painted in the scriptures, where the father was present, the mother was there, and they came out of a loving home, probably we wouldn't have as much crime as we have.
That's true.
We probably wouldn't have as much, the community wouldn't be traumatized as much as it is, because statistics in this book, I take time to talk about how when you go into our prison system, people who offend not once but repeatedly, people who flunk their exams, people who have teenage pregnancy, people who have a battered woman syndrome, all of these social ills, they have a direct correlation with the influence or the absence thereof of a father. So it has to be connected. It goes directly to that root. God himself exemplified it, when he created us. He was there. He had interaction with Adam and Eve, until sin came in and the family fell apart. And then he even went the extra mile to put the family back together. So yes, fatherhood is at the bedrock of the family and the community.
Awesome. Thank you. So Pastor Joe's book, The Bedrock, the Fulcrum, the hinge of this book focuses around the prodigal son. And if you read that passage very well, Luke chapter 15. So there was a quote that he made. There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided his property between them. Only God will do this, because right now, if you ask me to divide my estate amongst my children, they haven't worked for me. I won't do that right now. They cannot even manage. So for this man to do that, it's an extra love that the father demonstrated. All right. So tonight, Pastor Joe is preaching this book on our show. He's not charging us a dime. That is voluntary work that he's doing for the studio and blessing the world. So the only way we can appreciate his service, please get a copy of his book. Not only are you getting knowledge, you are also blessing his ministry. And as I said earlier on, you are giving him more ink to write more books. So that is the way we can appreciate him. Get a copy of this book, buy one for somebody, share this video with somebody, let them listen to this broadcast and be a better person. All right, so Pastor Joe, Luke 15, 11 and 12, as I quoted earlier on, the younger one said to his father, give me the share of the estate. And you write that that was an unrealistic demand. Explain that.
It was an unrealistic demand because normally inheritance is passed on after the death of the person willing that inheritance.
That's true.
The timing of his request was completely off. How can you walk up to your father and say, give me everything that befalls me when you are dead and he's still alive? And that goes to talk, it plays into the demands of our children. Sometimes our children ask for the impossible. I grew up thinking that my father could do no wrong. I grew up thinking that, in fact, I remember in school, and you talk about that a B. I don't know about all that, but I don't want to get into it because that might veer off into school. Because when I hear that word school, you know what's following, right?
Don't even mention Presec. Don't mention Presec. No. Whether you're or daddy or whatever, I don't say it tonight.
Or that year. All right. So children can ask for they can place unreasonable demands, give me this, give me that. I mean, you try to buy your child a toy. I remember the first toy I bought for my first daughter, and it's like, man, I want this toy so much. Oh, daddy, please, can I have it? Please, please. And they do the blues begging, till you get it.
Exactly.
The
Make you
next
feel
time,
guilty.
you see that toy, either broken or just thrown away
The
somewhere,
bathroom.
you know what I mean, and don't even care about it. So the demands of the children. Also, I need to point out that this father was a unique father.
That's
because true. Like you rightly said, he still went ahead and gave the son what he was looking for. He gave him that space. I identify the young man as fitting into, he was right at the cusp of the millennial, because he definitely was not a child, under 18. He was grown enough to step out there and to take risks. And sometimes as fathers, we must be willing to, give our children that space, allow them to go out there and experience things, give them freedom, calculated freedom at certain times. Because when you are overprotective, like you grew up, I said that a B like yourself.
Not really.
You were shielded. I know you were shielded.
Not to your extent.
Anyway, so, if I were to tell you my story, you'll be amazed. I have sold pop rice in Lorry Park in Accra. I have sold mosquito coil in Dansoman. I went to, in 1983, this is a bit of digression. In 1983, when there was hunger, I don't know if you remember it. I mean,
I do.
Ghana was tough at the time, and we had to go into the village. I went to the village with some of my friends, and we went to the farm.
But you did it just because you wanted to experience the fun, not because life was making you do it.
Well, but we went into the farm. We brought foodstuffs to the school, and we had how you have a makeshift oven where we would cook a bunch of cassava and
I know, yeah,
all these different things.
Sometimes we bail and stuff.
Right. So it's important to, allow the children to give them some space, let them take responsibility for some things like this father did. He said, okay, you go ahead, you take it. It's a tough thing you're asking me to do. It's an unrealistic demand you're placing of me. How can you ask me for, what will come to me? You're tapping into something premature.
Exactly.
But the father, was good enough to let the son, give him that space and to go experience it. And one final thing I want to say about this young man, he was the second child.
Okay.
I did a study into, firstborns, secondborns, third child, and all the different, I don't know if it's part of your questioning, so I don't want
to I'll go to, maybe I'll just give you what I was going to ask. And because you mentioned 4 things, about if you want to go into the 4 major points, about this child, this baby.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying that you mentioned the 4 things that I wanted to go in. I mean, about this child who was the second, he was the youngest son, but then he was also the second. I mean, there were 4 things that you kind of split out. And if you want to go through those 4 points, that'll be fine. Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I it's been a while since I wrote this book.
Okay. Oh, really? I'll just remind you. So I'll just give you the point, and then if you want to expatiate. So the first one was that the younger son was the second son. All right. So he was the younger son was the second son. Our second son's cursed, because you mentioned this MIT economist Joseph Doyle, who alluded to the fact that second sons are cursed. That is something I want you to, explain. And then
Okay.
the second point is that it is customary for beneficiaries of a trust or an estate to be entitled to their inheritance only upon having the full records of the decedent's assets. And the third point you made was that the guy seemed old enough, like you said, to demand his share of his father's estate, which is sometimes still battling with. And the fourth point you made was that being at least 18 years, the younger son will be considered a millennial. An interesting fact that cannot be overlooked.
Okay, man, that's a professor speaking.
Well, those are your words.
Okay. So yes, you jolt my memory, and yes, the MIT economist Joseph Doyle, right? He was actually playing the devil's advocate.
Okay.
And he was asking that is the second-born child cursed? He was just putting out a teaser.
Okay.
Was he cursed? Because he did a study which showed that in fact, even our Bible has it has so much to say about second-borns, whether it's Ephraim and Manasseh, whether
Esau
it's
and Jacob.
Jacob, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
so much in there where somehow the second seem to be full of energy. They seem to be the ones to step out there and to do all these different things. So Joseph Doyle, the economist, the MIT economist, was asking, is the second child cursed? Is there any spiritual thing, any omen around the second child? Now, if you read his thesis and his submission, he came up with this. No, the second child is not cursed. There's no such thing as a second child being cursed. In fact, Jesus is referred to as the second Adam.
Okay.
There's the first Adam and the second Adam. Now, here's what he said. He said that data reveals that second-borns basically have 25 to 40% higher tendency of getting into trouble at school.
Okay.
This was based on statistics. But the reason that is so is because when a parent have their first child, they're all lovey-dovey. This is my first child.
Yeah.
Remember your first kiss,
Exactly,
your first paycheck, your first record album. I bought my first album in Tottenham, in the UK. And I
slept with it.
Everywhere I went, I had to hear that record. So by the time the second child comes around, it's almost like
the fun is gone.
You cut them a slack, you kind of stay back, and that allows the children to experiment and to get away with many things. Okay. So if you are a second-born listening to me, you are not cursed. There is no curse. There's nothing about a second-born, whatever that is a curse. Is the fact that by the time your parent has a second child, they cut you a slack.
Okay.
And all that. Secondly, you mentioned the estate, right?
Okay.
Which
Yeah.
we talked about. The record shows that you can only will a thing to a person only after they are dead. But this child was tapping into something. In our Ghanaian parlance, we'll say, we are bonny. You are trying to go into something that is not being uncovered. It reminds me of the fact that the Bible says that the angels, they sought to look into the plan of God, but they were not permitted to look at it. It was reserved for us who live in this day. God made that thing special for us so that we would live it, walk in grace, which is the dispensation we're in now. So the second-born tapped into something that his brother, his even firstborn, was not privy to. Because God told Abraham, he said, divide your property. If you have two children, divide it into three. 2/3 goes to the first child and 1/3 goes to the second. But this second was able to tap into something. Now we are the second Israel, if you will.
Okay.
Because God came to his own, according to John 1:12, and his own received him not.
Yeah,
but then he came to us, the Gentiles, and we have received a better promise. So I talk about the fact that that's not here, that's in my sequel, that we are that second, and we have a better covenant. There's the first covenant, which is the Old Testament, and the second covenant, which is the New Testament, which is a better covenant.
So if I may interject,
Yes, sir.
was this like the second child was trying to break the status quo? Because
Absolutely.
it's like he's saying to the first one, you've been hanging around daddy for a long time, you don't want to leave. I am ready to step up. And also, I just got this light bulb in my head that you know how in our traditional system, if a father or a mother dies intestate or without a will, the family members normally come and kick off the children and all that and, take the inheritance. So was this child saying that, what, daddy, I don't want you to die for the family people to come and take, or I want it now before you die? I mean, is this something like that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, you said it. You see, this is why you're a doctor. You're not a
Oh,
doctor
no.
for nothing. We say in our Ghanaian parlance again, right?
Wow,
So I have, yes, absolutely. I think that would fit the narrative perfectly. That would fit the narrative very, very perfectly. That he was breaking something, because the first child, and that's another thing about firstborns. He stayed with his father the whole time. Second one came back, he was still there, and we'll talk about that maybe a little later on. How that grabs us. But the third thing was that he was old enough to be. He was over 18.
To make choices.
There was no 13-year-old or 12-year-old or 10 or 7. You are in diapers.
That's true.
You are not old enough to experience life for yourself. So in my own imagination, I put the child to be at least 18 years and older. And I based that off of the Western playbook, because in the Western world, when you're 18, when you're old enough,
to make decisions,
And so I connect that with the wealth of the millennials, because remember, before the turn of the millennial, before the 2000s came, people thought that the world was going to end.
That's true.
People thought that computers were going to crash, something was going to fall from space and crush all of us. The millennials were, it was unknown. It was an unknown factor. So at the time, I drew from the fact that they had the
do you remember? You remember in California, before we were there, before 2000, you told me Jesus was coming, so I should give you all my my bank accounts. That was going to be the rapture. I remember.
I did.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I'll say to you. When I was a child, I speak as a child.
So now you're grown.
When you're grown, you put away childish things. Trust me, it goes to show you that we are fallible. It goes to show you that we're not perfect. We learn something. We said yesterday. Today we can come back and say, hey, you know what? I made a mistake. So if I told you Jesus was coming, well,
I was just pulling your legs.
Sister Gibson, a good one. That's a good one.
Sister Gibson mentioned on the platform, she said all she said was, I don't know what is going on. I mean, I know when people say HMMM, then there are a whole lot of comments coming behind it. They are so huge they can't even put it into words. All they say is I don't know whether some father has I don't know, but I wish she would have put a question there. All right, Bishop, thank you for being with us tonight. I'm really enjoying this. Okay, so the father you're talking about, the prodigal son and the father, that father is just excellent. I mean, he's an epitome of God. So we can't even equate to, because like I said earlier on, if Davina came and said, Daddy, give me the estate of your inheritance and for me to go and blow, I will look her straight in the face and say, you know how to make, it's not going to happen. But then there's been some, I know Martha had a question. There's been some runaway fathers, even as we are applauding and not bashing fathers. There are some fathers who, as we alluded to in the last conversation, only become donors. They produce the sperm and they are gone. Runaway fathers. How do we go around this problem? I mean, I know it's difficult. Some of them think they are not, ready to be fathers, but still they wouldn't zip up their zip or whatever. They'll still do what they have to do and run away. How do we go around or curb those runaway fathers in our system?
In fact, this question is $1 million question, and this is what led to writing the book. This is why our countries are going through all these different things we're facing. I wish that there was one simple answer that could address all of this, but there is not. And also, for the record, I would like to state that fatherlessness or the absence of a real father is not just an American problem. It's not just 24 million children in America, 1 out of 3. In the United Kingdom, as I said, 62% of families in places like Camden and across England and Wales, there's 50% of households consisting of families where there are no dads present. This is the United Kingdom. When you talk about Australia, there's 85% of single parent families and fatherless families. That is big, 85%. You know, same thing with South Africa, in Ghana, and some of these countries that would have you believe that God lives there and there's no problem. It is a problem. It is a problem across the generations. You know, one of my favorite writers on this subject is a guy called David Blankenhorn. David Blankenhorn, he has a groundbreaking book called Fatherless America. You know, and he says this. He says that fatherlessness is the most harmful demographic to our generation. I used to think that in America is about race and racism. I think you had Dr. Rick Donko,
Yes,
you know,
his
who
book,
wrote a fantastic book on
The Color
race
of
and
God, yeah.
racism, The
The
Color of
Color
God.
of God, yeah.
You know, where 11 o'clock is the most segregated hour in America,
America.
et cetera, et cetera. Yes, we deal with race and racism and all these different things, but I learned that fatherlessness is a deeper problem than that. You know, the absence of a father, and that only leads to the decay of the country and the nation. So how do we deal with that? I think that we must first return to God. We must go to God. He is the father who models how a father should be in this text, you know, the prodigal son. So we must return to him and learn from the father.
That's true.
Number two, I also feel like people like yourself who are great fathers, you sacrifice for Davina, right?
Yeah.
Davina, and your other children.
General and
Yes.
Joel, yeah.
Yes, we should also extend ourselves. We must extend ourselves. There is somebody in your family, maybe your niece, your nephew, your uncle, somebody who needs fathering. So every now and then on a weekend, you bring them home, they mix with your kids, you take them out, you take them to the barber shop, you know, stuff like that. You go see their game. We must begin to the change. You know, it must begin from us. We must not wait and look to the government. We must do the little part that we can. I also call on the church. You know, the church. Don't just meet on Sunday. Don't just pray in tongues. Don't just do programs that grows the church. Take time to grow the people. Take time to find the needs of the people. Sometimes a pastor can say, hey, all the young men in the church, between what right now we're dealing more with the Gen
The
Z
teens.
from 26 to about 11, right? I say, let's all
Yep.
go to Golden Corral. Let's go eat. And then we have a good time, or let's go play basketball, you know,
Some games,
let's go
yeah.
out to the park, stuff like that. So let's get involved with these kids and let's impact the world. It might start small, but no small change can be underestimated. I hope that's
Awesome. That is well spoken, because some of these kids that are growing up, because the hormones are coming in. I remember when I was in high school, Augustins, I'm a Form 1, Form 2. I experienced some first things I didn't understand. Nobody taught me how it meant. And I mean, these days we have to get these kids and teach them, you know, like you said, take them out, eat, or, you know, play games and explain to them how, you know, advancing from boy, because they have girls. Some of them, they have crushes on these girls and they don't even know how to handle them. This is where we meet, and you can even advise them, hey, this is what is happening to your body. This is how you react to it, and this is how you treat it. Because all kinds of stuff flood in their minds. I mean, can you imagine a 12-year-old waking up in the morning experiencing something he has no idea what it is? And maybe he has a crush on this girl. I mean, he doesn't know why he loves the girl, but he just knows that he loves the girl. But boys have to be models and explain some of these things to this boy. So, well, it's been a pleasure having Bishop Joe here. And as I said earlier on, please, this man is doing this thing of a free heart, voluntary. I mean, he's not getting paid for it. He's just giving us his service. He's spending an hour of his time. He had an appointment. He had to rush in to come and do this broadcast. So, Pastor Joe, Thank you very much. And to my audience, the only way we can appreciate this man is get a copy of his book, buy a copy of his book. Let his efforts not be in vain. And I believe when Pastor Joe, I'm not going to use the word if because it's going to happen. When he becomes a millionaire, he remember era one and come and sow a seed and bless us. So let's bless him. And when he prospers to that kingdom, he will be a blessing. So Martha just gave a comment. Let me just read it quickly. How can prodigal fathers be accepted back home to play his fatherly role? Well, I know Pastor Joe mentioned a bit of the challenges and the solution, but Pastor Joe, if you don't mind, Martha is saying, how can prodigal father, because not just the prodigal sons, because some of the prodigal sons, if they are not checked, they grow up to become prodigal fathers, the runaway ones, the ones who will just do hit and run away. So she's asking, how can prodigal fathers be accepted back home to play his fatherly role? That's a loaded question.
That's a very, very loaded question, and I would give like a short, simple version of it. Okay. And thank you to your listener for that question. I think that hopefully in the next broadcast we'll take time to address that, because I think it leads into a very, very important segue. That's another aspect that's not in this book, but it's a very good one. Now, we know that mothers, they carry the fetus.
Okay.
A mother will be with the child when the father has abandoned, when some fathers have abandoned, the woman and the child, and etc. The woman is the one who always stays with the child, although we have, women who go through different things. If you are a female, or you are a mother, or you bear a child with another man who runs away from their responsibility, who abandon you while you're pregnant, they leave you to go through all of these different things. And sometimes when they begin to come around, it's not an easy thing to do, but I'm asking that you consider at least some type of allowing. Of course, that would come with healing taking place and all of that. You might not be with the guy, you may not be married, or you may not have any relationship with the guy, but for the sake of the fetus, for the sake of the child.
Yeah, I think we froze for a minute.
Say again?
I said we froze for a minute. I mean, we kind of, the internet kind of.
Okay. So I was addressing the woman who has held the child, who has carried the child through the 9 months pregnancy. When the father begin to come around, give them a chance. I know you were hurt. I get it. I see you. I see your tears. I see your pain. I see the fact that you were abandoned and you felt like, they didn't care anything about you. But for the sake of the child who has to grow up with the full influence of the man, I say give them a chance. You may not give the child over to him to take them home and to stay with them. That, I think, we can go through our court system to clear that. But if they have demonstrated a certain quality, a certain character, a certain behavior, where they are wanting to come back and have redemption, I say that work with them. Don't punish, as it were, the guy because he wasn't there for you. So you make a child go without the influence of the father. That could be one way to let them back in, and to play their role, of course, with supervision and making sure that they at least deserve that opportunity. But by all means, give them that chance. Let them come into the life of the child. Let them have that influence in the life of the child.
Well spoken. Thank you, Bishop. I know sometimes when a man hurts you, it's very difficult to forgive. I mean, this is somebody you've trusted and he's betrayed your trust. I mean, letting them back into the family to take care of the children will be difficult. But then, I mean, it takes only God to give proper forgiveness, because if he forgives us, we don't have a choice but to forgive. And the bishop has stated very well. I'll put the title of the book in the post. The Father Factor, the Key the World Forgot. That's the title of Pastor Bishop Joe Kwapong's book. Please get a copy and let's appreciate. We want him to write more books. I know the sequel is coming, because I want to later on read about what happened to the younger child when he came back home. I don't know whether it's already in the first edition. I haven't finished the book, but I want to see what happened to the second child when he came back and started working for the father. Was he giving back his respect as a son, or what happened, or he became a laborer? We'll discuss that in later discourses, but I want to know more about it. So let's encourage our brother to write more. And don't let it be said of you that you are a black man, so you don't like reading. When somebody wants to hide something, he puts in the book. No, we are the new generation. We are way over that. If somebody puts knowledge in a book, we're going to read and find out. So thank you very much. But before we go, before I give Pastor Joe the closing remarks, I want to just play a quick ad of Dr. Ostus clip. I don't know whether I can find it, but Dr. Ostus is very much enthused about helping people to come up. You know, he wants to help fledgling musicians. If you're a musician, you want to be adored. Maybe you just play some conga or chan 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 somewhere, and you don't have any promoter. Get in touch with Dr. Ostus, 2402-802-633, and this man will bring you on the program and interview you. Before you know, you're a Grammy winner. And he has a program every Saturday morning from, I think, 6 to 9. Listen to a clip of this, and I'll come back and let Pastor Joe give us his closing remarks. That's Pastor, Dr. Osus, clip for his program on Saturdays, and he interviews all musicians every Saturday, and as well as playing birthday, music and greetings for people. So please get in touch on Saturday if you are a fledgling musician, you want to be adored and want to be, propagated upon the globe. See this man, and he will bring you to the limelight. All right, Pastor Joe, it's been a pleasure having you again in the studios tonight. Maybe you have a closing remarks, advice. You have been a good dad. You have that experience. Anybody who has an experience and writes a book, it's somebody who is an expert. So he's a doctor of fatherhood. I mean, I give him that title because he knows the coolness and everything. Pastor Joe, give us the closing remarks, and then I can let you go and rest because it's been a long day for you.
Well, thank you. I want to speak to fathers out there and to know that, first of all, being a father is a spiritual thing. It's something not to be taken lightly. A father isn't, as we've said this many times, is not just a person who produces children, but a person who actually plays the role of a father. We also want to say that there are some people who may not necessarily be biological fathers. They may not have had children, but they are more than fathers. They play the role of fathers. A father provides not just finances, but they provide security. They provide safety, a safe space where their children or the people who are under his influence can come and be themselves. We all go through different traumas. We suffer different things. And for some of us, we may not have had the best example growing up because our fathers were not there for us, So we started out not knowing what a father really should be. I came to talk to somebody today that you can break that cycle. We can break that cycle. It can start from you. You may not have been, like I said, experienced fatherhood from your father. But number one, you have a heavenly father who loves you so dearly that he sent his son Yeshua to die for you. He sent his son for you. And you can talk to him, regardless of what you've been through, regardless of what your experience has been like. He so loved you, and he will wrap his arms around you. I remember when we used to be in California many years ago, there was a gentleman who came to me. He said, Joe, I am struggling with this area. I'm struggling in this particular area. I put my arms around him. I told him, I said, man, we can talk anytime. I remember him, breaking down and crying and, sharing all these different things with me. I have lost contact with him, but my heart never stopped following this brother. So I'm saying to you is that no matter where you are, your heavenly Father extends his grace to you. He extends his arms to you. And we, Dr. Charles and myself in the studio, along with many, many, many other pastors, will also receive you. So I just want to encourage you that don't give up, don't throw in the towel. You may have started off on a wrong footing, but you cannot give up. The world is waiting for you. Somebody somewhere is hurting and they need you. You must first be healed, though.
That's true.
And I pray for you today that God will heal you. He will reach out his loving arms and wrap it around you so that when you are healed, you will go out and love others. Let's take our role as fathers, because there's too many people who are waiting on you to rise up and to be the father that God created you to be. God bless you.
Wow, awesome. That's like a doxology, like a what is it, benediction coming from a church. For a while, I thought we were in church or something. I mean, that is the bishop has said it. That was a closing remarks and a prayer. So receive that prayer. He said, don't give up. Somebody is looking to you. Somebody is waiting on you. Don't give. You know, oh, well, my connection was going out again. That tells me you are almost out of time. Pastor Joe, I cannot overemphasize it. I mean, and I cannot, I want to underscore it. That thank you very much for gracing our program tonight, coming to give us this, awesome presentation. We don't take it lightly at all. And so those of you who helped us, I want to say thanks to Martha who joined us. Martha is in Adenta, Accra. As I told you, she owns her own farm called My Farm. Those of you who own chop bars and restaurants, get in touch with, Google her farm, My Farm, get in touch with her, give her a call, go and buy fresh produce. They kill the animal right there on the farm, whether it's goat or rabbit. Those of you like rabbits, adankun, and all that poultry, get fresh meat. Don't be eating too much of the frozen, injected product. Just get fresh one with the original kumamau and use it for your product and bless people. And I want to give to well, she was on with a hymn sound, and she also have. I want to say thank you for joining. On behalf of my studio manager, my CEO, Dr. Setutu, thank you for listening. Please share the video. Let it go wide and far. Let people hear about this broadcast. Get a copy of Pastor Joe's book. Read alongside. When you have a copy and we are discussing this, it makes it very, very, flowy. It's like a book club. So get a copy and bless the man of God. I want Joe to be a millionaire, and I know he's not going to forget about it. So, Pastor Joe, thank you very much. I'm going to leave our listeners with some music, and then we can call it a day. So if I don't see you again tonight, I will see you on the other side. We'll meet again next. Have a good evening, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Aden urefiana se otumi manya eni aba aden wasu mani su afosunyade aden meba aden kra ya useni daswasa eni daso kra eni daso yo eni daso ya mensubi eni daso oh,